Good morning, everyone. My name is Raina Ghazi, and I'm the Teacher Development Manager for Macmillan Education International Curriculum. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Welcome to the third of a series of 4 webinars sponsored by Macmillan Education and the Confucius Institute at Oxford Brookes University. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the questions box. I will do our best to answer those questions for you. The first presenter for our session today is Dr. Juju, who I will pass it over to now. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session. My name is Juju and I'm from the University of Leeds. Since all the campuses of the UK universities are still closed, I'm sending you my greetings from my home in Edinburgh. Today, my topic is Chinese grammar in the digital world. So there are 2 main elements of my talk. First of all, we're going to look at the digital world that we're in, and then we're going to look at issues related to the teaching of Chinese grammar. First of all, we're going to look at what the digital world, the term means, and then we're going to have a really quick look at the apps and the learning management systems that are available for us to use. And then we're going to look at what we want for our students, how we would want them to be future ready. And then we're going to look back at our digital responses to COVID-19 when all this happened, particularly in March. And then we're going to look forward to look at what teaching and learning will be like in the post-COVID-19 era. And then we're going to think, what's the 2 things we must do when we move our teaching online, wholly or partially? And then I'm going to move to my second part, and I'm going to promote explicit grammar teacher mode. I'm going to start with the merits that this mode of teaching has, and then I will be talking about some misconceptions about explicit grammar teaching. And then I will focus on how we can take a communicative approach to explicit grammar teaching, and then I will give you an example. And now we're going to look at the first part of my talk, the digital world. So what the term means, the digital world. The digital world is the availability and use of digital tools. So there are 2 things, the availability of them and how we use them. And I think the human factor in this is the most important. It's not that when they are available, we have to use it. The tools, they're there at our disposal. We should be the master to decide which ones are the best ones for us, for our students, for a job, for communication. And then we're going to have a really quick glimpse of the apps and learning management systems. And it has loads and loads available on the market at the moment. And if you look around, you can see that we can roughly categorize them into a few very general groups. First of all, maybe you're quite familiar with some of these, and these are quite good for giving your students quizzes and give them feedback to add a bit of fun to their exercises and your classroom. And it's possible that you haven't used all of them, and this is not a complete list of all the apps and systems available. I'm just giving you some examples. So this group of apps is quite good to use for giving quizzes and feedback. And this group of apps might be quite familiar to many of us. We use them mainly for communication and collaboration purposes. And among them, I myself have used Microsoft Teams, Zoom, OneNote a lot because that's what the institute I'm working for has purchased. So what you use may have a lot to do with what the institutes you are working have purchased. So you don't have to know all of them. And we use the following frequently, or some of them frequently, to create and to exchange ideas. And it's quite fun to use these apps as well. But again, don't let them overwhelm you. They're just there, they're tools there for you to make use of. And last, let's have a look at the learning management systems. And these are the popular ones at the moment. Apparently, market is huge and everybody wants to get a share at the moment. And again, different institutes maybe use different ones. And here at in the UK, we're using Blackboard a lot. And that's what I am using based at the University of Leeds. Okay, they are all tools. And like I said just now, we can't let them overwhelm us. We make use of them for our specific purposes. We're teachers. We want good stuff for our students. We want good stuff for delivering our job responsibilities. What do we want our students to be? We want our students and ourselves to be future ready. And what does that even mean? Let's have a look at what OECD's vision is. And according to them, they think that learners should exercise learner agency because they need it to navigate through a complex and uncertain world. And students need to be future ready, and they need to exercise agency in their own education and throughout life. So it's not just in our classrooms. They need to do it through life. And we need in our classrooms, or we need as teachers to help them develop such skills. And agency implies a sense of responsibilities to participate. So that's something we can do through our classrooms and activities. And agency requires the ability to frame a guiding purpose and identify actions to achieve a goal. So they need to know what they're doing, why they're doing, and towards what purpose. And these are all something that we can do in our classrooms through our educational activities, no matter what subject we teach. And let's have a look at what WEF's vision is. They have proposed 16 key skills that they think belong to the 21st century. Although these skills were proposed based on their visions about primary and secondary teaching, we're all lifelong learners. Well, everyone is a lifelong learner. So I think all the skills are applicable to everyone. Okay, right. With what we want for students in our mind, and perhaps this is the right moment for us to look back at what happened, particularly back in March, when everything was happening so fast, and we had to quickly give some response to COVID-19. And we had our digital responses. We felt that almost overnight, we moved everything online. And I used this metaphor in my last talk last month to invite my audience to think about the immediate difficulties that we encountered when everything was moving so fast. And I also encouraged my audience to think, actually, deep in the water, like the part of the iceberg, what more profound issues we should think about. And all these issues actually will be highly relevant to what we are going to do after the COVID-19 era. Right. So now I also think it's a right moment to look forward. What teaching and learning will be like in the post-COVID-19 era? I believe we will still have brick and mortar classes. It's not that classroom teaching will completely disappear. It's not possible. And we will see that at least some teaching will be moving online, or we will see completely new courses, completely new classes being delivered completely online in the future. That's very possible as well. And I think at least for university teaching, hybrid teaching is definitely the way forward. And I'm sure that you have heard that most UK universities have announced that the first semester of this academic year will be delivered in a hybrid teaching mode, which means that some classes will be taking place online and some smaller group teaching may be taking place in the actual classroom. And let's have a look at the pros and cons of doing this. And of course, it will be more flexible, more effective, and the teachers will feel more empowered. What does that mean? Well, if we use hybrid teaching mode, teachers would deliver some teaching online, and it would be quite more convenient for teachers to get every student's feedback online, or to analyze data online. So you will feel that you may know your students better, and that way you may feel that you are empowered. And it can be more engaging, because if we go for hybrid teaching, we use different modes for teaching, and some students may respond better to some particular modes and some others. So all in all, you will feel that your teaching can be more engaging and it can be more personal. You can address individual issues more easily, or at least you can notice individual issues more easily. Cons: there will be huge technological challenge, both in infrastructure and IT literacy. Not everyone has first-class technological equipment at home, and not everyone is good at technology. So it's challenging for both teachers and students. And when you're using different modes, and of course, it can be very flexible, very effective, but at the same time, you may find it difficult to keep a pace that you want. And it might mean more workload for teachers, and it might mean more cognitive load for students, because they have to follow so many different modes, and they need to remember when to do what in what mode. Right? And I will invite you back to look at my iceberg picture again, all these issues. And if we look forward to look at delivering at least some teaching online, what issues do you really want to find solutions, or what issues do you really want to focus on, so that there won't be factors that have negative effect on teaching and learning activities? And I would think that community building is one. If, let's say, for a course that is only delivered online, you need to make your students to feel that they belong to a community. Community building is difficult, but you will find ways to do it. And students' motivation. Sometimes when we give students tasks to do before class, they don't do it. What can you do? Especially if you deliver everything online. If they decide not to get online, there's no way that you can drag this person online. And how to maintain effective communication when we don't see each other face to face all the time. So these are all the questions that we really need to ask ourselves to find answers for. Right. Okay, finding answers. When we teach online, I would think that if I want to give a very quick answer to the question, which is what we should do, what are the things that we must do when teaching online, I would say that all your teaching activities should be socially driven, because we want students to communicate between themselves and with us. So you need to use activities and methods to motivate and engage your learners. And 2, your classes must be easy to flip. So wait a moment. I know a flipped classroom is a very popular term and is well known. And traditionally, when we talked about this term, we were talking about asking students to do something online before coming to physical classrooms. But now the situation has changed. Even when we are delivering hybrid teaching, we might be delivering stuff that we were teaching in actual classrooms online. So I would think that the term flipped classroom should now have an expanded meaning. When we think of this term, we should not think that all the work that students do are online, and all the teaching, when you discuss what they have discovered, should be in a classroom. No, I think in the future, when we are adapting the hybrid teaching mode, it's really that you're teaching with your students, where you discuss what students have been encouraged to discover before class can be taken either in the classroom or online. So the whereabouts is not a deciding factor. Right, back to my trees, because I have finished my first part, and now I will invite everybody to go to my second part, where I'm going to talk about the teaching of Chinese grammar. Okay, and I will be promoting explicit grammar teaching. I know some of them will be like, really? Yes, because this mode has very obvious merits. And I think it's worth reading what some researchers have said about it. Okay, first of all, let's have a look at what Walter has said. Rigorously conducted meta-analysis of a wide range of studies have shown that within a general communicative approach, okay, and you have seen that I have highlighted that in a warm color, explicit teaching of grammar rules leads to better learning and to unconscious knowledge, and this knowledge lasts over time. And let's see what others have said. Okay, and the evidence in favor of explicit grammar teaching also applies to young learners from about 7 years of age. I guess among today's audience, there are school teachers. You might be thinking, well, wait a moment, do you really teach grammar to your children? Well, yes, you can. Of course, you would not teach exactly the same contents that you would go for when you teach adults, but it's not that they can't take explicit grammar explanation in your classroom. And also, let's have a look at the next. It is highly efficient to use the students' shared language to explain a grammar point, especially in a foreign language situation. So here in the UK, I think it's absolutely fine to use English when you explain grammar points, because your Chinese language students are learning Chinese as a foreign language. They don't have the language environment when they leave your classroom, and when you are explaining grammar rules, there's no way that you can explain it in Chinese and they still understand you. And again, let's see what Walter has said. And she was asked this question: can we use English to teach, or can we use the students' shared language to teach them grammar? And she says, absolutely, it would be silly not to. Why waste the rich resources of the classroom? I totally agree with that. So I have quoted her in full. All right, and you might still be having doubts, and I guess that might have something to do with the misconceptions that I have often hear. And people might think that, well, when you say explicit grammar teaching, it's teacher-centered. Now we want to have student-centered classrooms. No, it can still be student-centered. I will show you how later. And some people might think, well, when you talk about explicit grammar teaching, there's no interaction with your students. It's bad. We want interactions. No, they do not mutually exclude themselves. You can still have interaction with students. In fact, it's very, very important to have interactions with your students when you explain grammar. And some people might think, okay, right, I really want to go for a communicative approach because I want my students to immerse in the in the target language. So I will use Chinese. If I teach Chinese, I would use Chinese all the time to my students. Well, a communicative approach doesn't really mean that, especially if you're teaching Chinese in the UK. To use Chinese to explain Chinese grammar is not an example of language immersion. Your students would not feel that they are immersed in Chinese. They would just feel that they're horrified by you. And some people might think, well, if I take a communicative approach, really it means that I'm taking implicit language teaching mode. No. When it's a communicative approach, you can still do it in a very explicit way. And some people think, well, you see, the textbooks that I use and the syllabus that I have been given are normally topic-based or task-based. I can't possibly teach grammar explicitly if I will go for a topic-based syllabus. Well, come on, nothing stops you having a grammar syllabus alongside other syllabuses. You can have multiple syllabuses at the same time to help your students learning. So, if we have cleared all these misconceptions, I'm sure you will feel much better now about explicit grammar teaching, and I will help you feel better even more, because I want to emphasize on the point that we should take a communicative approach to explicit grammar teaching. If we give good teaching, we give students good rules, if we give them good examples, and if we engage them in good practice activities, it is likely that will help learners to become motivated, efficient, lifelong learners. But what does good mean really here in this context? Well, your teaching, your tasks should be intriguing. It should be interesting to your students. It will help them to become more curious about something, and they will feel that what you teach is relevant to them, so they're willing to listen to you. And the tasks and what you teach needs to be meaningful to them. You can't give them a feeling that, well, Chinese language is really different and grammar is really dry. I don't know what you're talking about. You need to put everything in a meaningful way. You need to let them feel. It might not be explicit, they might not be explicitly know about it, but they at least would need to have the feeling that they're doing something meaningful. It's not mechanical. They're not just asked to repeat the stuff. And you would really need to help your students to be able to apply what you have just taught them immediately. Everyone needs to feel that what they have just learned can be immediately put in use. And I think that is hugely encouraging to learners at any age. So in a way, they need to feel that what they are learning is rewarding. And when you teach, of course, you will be respecting learner characteristics. Like I said just now, yes, you take explicit grammar teaching, but when you are teaching young learners, it's different from when you are teaching adults. So to put my thoughts together, what I'm promoting is explicit grammar teaching, pedagogically suitable to a particular cohort of students through a meaningful combination of delivery means. So if you look at the last bit, combination of delivery means, and of course it includes online tools. Right, and now I would like to give you an example to see how I deal with structures used to talk about the past. when we talk some other grammar points, it might be easy for us not to give them explicit explanation, but still help them to quickly get what you mean or what you want them to know. But when it comes to the structures used to talk about the past, I imagine it's quite difficult to rely on images and loads times of repetition for them to really know what they should know about the structures. And if I ask you, as Chinese native speakers, what structures do we use when we talk about the past? What runs into your mind? I'm sure le runs into many people's mind first. And clearly, that's something we teach our students first. But what have you experienced when you teach le to your students? And some of you might say, yes, I did explicitly taught them the rules about le, and they can answer questions in class. And many of them can also get right answers in the exams. But in real life, when they open their mouth to talk about the past, they make loads and loads of mistakes. And when they write a composition about the past, they make loads and loads of mistakes. Why? Yes, I want to ask you why. We don't have tenses in Chinese. We look at the past. We look at time issues from very different angle. When we talk about the past, what structures do we use? We use le, we use 是的, we use 过, and sometimes we don't use anything. How do you help your students to know when to use what or when not to use anything? You need to create something that is general for them to understand, a general rule that they may follow. At least the rule can be useful for them for the future when they need specific different structures that are used to talk about the past in Chinese. And how can we achieve that? And I will take Discover China as an example to demonstrate my ideas. And we said that a textbook is developed because of a set of thoughts. There might be different reasons. They might have different systems. They have different features. And let's have a look at the features of Discover China first. If I take you to the contents of Book 1, and if we just look at the titles of all the units, 你好, 你是哪里人? 你做什么工作? Clearly, this book is a topic-based book. There's a communicative approach behind it, which is excellent because we want our students to learn expressions that they can use in communications in real life. Okay, but now I'm talking about the structures we need to talk about the past. So let's have a look at how the grammar, the relevant grammar, is arranged in this book. So if you go to the second part of the table of contents of Book 1, you will see that le is introduced in Unit 8 and 过 is introduced in Unit 11. So here in Unit 8, you can see expressing past tense using le, and in Unit 11, you can see 过 here. Okay, so that 2 units in between. Okay, let's continue. If we have a look at Book 2, this book is organized according to topics as well. And 是的 structure is introduced towards the very, very end. of this book. So far, all the structures have been introduced. But you can see the time frame. Normally, you will need at least a year to finish both books. But can students wait for that long before they want to say something about the past? You say, oh yeah, they can. After I have taught them le, they can feel free to say sentences using le. Yes, I'm sure they can. If you say to them, now say some sentences using le, and they will immediately think, well, yes, le. Where should I place le? When do I need to use le? Yeah, they make it their sentences right. But if you say, well, tell me something about what you did yesterday evening, and the students might want to say, well, the Chinese takeaway reopened yesterday evening. I went there. I went there at 7. I went there with my sisters. Well, can you see the problem now? It's fine to use I went le for the sentence I went there. But if the person says, 我去了, 我7点去了, 我跟姐姐去了, do you find it odd? It's very odd. And you want to say something to your students, but you can't because they haven't learned the other structures. So you were like, well, these sentences are grammatically correct anyway, so I would just leave them and wait until when I have taught them 是的 structure, so that I can say, actually, you should say 我去了, 我是7点去的, 我是跟姐姐去的, something like that. And the students will turn around and ask you, well, last time you said all my sentences were correct, and today you're saying that to use a 是的 for the last 2 would be better. Why? How would you explain? And or, more likely, students will have forgotten about the fact that they used le in 3 sentences in a row last time, and they're totally confused. They don't know when to use le, when to use 是的. Yes, they can say correct sentences. If you clearly ask them to say, now, say this sentence using le, they can do it. Now, say the other sentence using 是的, they can do it. But when it comes to free expressing their ideas in writing and in speaking, they can't. They're confused. They don't know how to choose. So what should we do? Now, let's have a look at Unit 8 of Discover China, Book 1, and I will further illustrate my thoughts. So, in Lesson 8, this is the first time the students have come across le, and you can see that this lesson is organized according to topics. So the idea is to ask students to read the dialogue in the middle, which takes place in a shop, and then students will do some listening comprehension exercises in which le appears for the first time to judge whether these statements are true or false. And I'm sure some of the students can get the right answer to say whether it's true or false. Now, first of all, well, it's 50-50, isn't it? If you guess it, there's a 50% of the chance that you get the right answer. And also, 安娜买了一条黑色的裙子. And if the student got the word about the color, they could guess, and that way they can guess whether it's correct or not for that statement. But it doesn't mean that they know how to use le. And let's continue. And you can see that further down the pages, there are exercises, and we know exercises, practice makes perfect. That's what we often say, but it needs to be meaningful practice. If you just repeat something that is not very meaningful many times, it doesn't make perfect, I'm afraid. So here students are asked to do exercises, and there's a good chance that they do this exercise on the right hand side correctly because they're giving examples, and they can copy the examples to produce correct sentences. And there might be a good opportunity for students to do the exercises on the right hand side, this big square here correctly, because again there are other clues. But if you look at this one, Also on the left-hand side. I'm sorry that you may not see it clearly, so I will read it out. This exercise asks students to write a blog about your own life. So the students may choose to talk about what they did yesterday. And like I said just now, that's where all the problems will appear. Right. Okay, so what I want to say is that, yes, students may be correctly answer your questions when you clearly have told them to use the structure le. They can't use it correctly in real life because they don't really know when to use it. They do not know the differences between the different structures. Right. What the solution should be then? Before we find the solutions, we should look at two questions first. First, what do we want teaching materials for? So we all use teaching materials. What do we want them for? And what is your relationship with your textbook? So, to quote Allwright, the management of learning is far too complex to be satisfactorily catered for by a pre-packaged set of decisions. So we can't totally rely on textbooks. We have to come up with something actively to complement any textbook or any set teaching materials. Right, my solution here. My solution is to have a grammar syllabus and a topic syllabus side by side, and I will illustrate what I do. My students are university students and they're beginners of Chinese. And what I do is to start with a general view of all the structures related to the past and see what affects the choices. And you might be thinking, well, is that possible? Will that be too overwhelming for your students? No, they won't. Let's see what I do. Before the class, I will establish, so remember, we're going for a flipped classroom. So I have tasks for students to complete before class. So first of all, I will establish a context with them by giving them this paragraph in English. It was my little sister's birthday yesterday. We went to a Chinese restaurant. We went there at 7. I had tried Chinese food before, but my little sister had not. We liked the restaurant very much. And of course, I would not ask them to translate this paragraph. It's just there to make them think. And at the same time, in this piece of information, I actually give them the translations in Chinese for each sentence and with the key information highlighted. So students will see, well, for all the first 3 sentences, they're of simple past tense. Why? A different structure is used for each of them. For number 4, it's past perfect tense. Okay. And number 5 really confuses me because it's a simple past. But why there's no special structure used for us? Yes, that's exactly what you want your students to think and to have a discussion among them. And you might be thinking, well, I should tell my students that Chinese has no tenses. Yes, that's what you should tell your students. I do as well. It's a must, but it doesn't stop them from looking at everything from a tense perspective because that's what they have in their mother tongue. They can't just not do it. Okay, and so wait a moment. Before we move on to my step 2, I would like you really to think of these questions. And I'm sorry that I can't have direct interaction with you at the moment, but this is what I would like you to think about. What is the purpose of your step 1? So you would need to have a clear objective for the tasks that you set before class. And it must facilitate autonomous learning, whether as independent learning or collaborative learning. it must help with community building. It must help promoting critical thinking skills. And more importantly, it must help lay foundation for your class discussion. And more specifically, with the paragraph that I gave to students, it meant for students to think about how to approach events that happened in the past. So you need to help students to look at how to approach the whole thing. From what angle? When there's no tense. And you need to think, well, what language you should use to introduce this knowledge, and how much self-study before class you want your students to do, and to use what e-tool to help with all of these. Right, and now let's come back to my step 2, in class. And in the class, you need to, like I said before, I would give explicit grammar teaching, but I'm not going to start my class with, well, now I'm going to tell you everything. No, it's a through discussion. You need to ask students to, well, by the way, and this classroom teaching could be in a real classroom or online. And you should hear what students have to say first and give feedback. And also, you need to be very careful how much to teach. In other words, to go how far. And someone asked this question before. They asked me, well, can you use one sentence to say how much grammar you should teach, when to teach this piece of grammar? I said, you shouldn't teach too much or too little. It has to be the right amount. You can't teach it too early or too late. It has to be right timing. I know that's not very helpful, but that's really something that you need to think when it comes to a grammar point. So how much, when to teach, according to your student's profile. And in the class, so after the discussions, I will talk about what I think about approaching the structures that I have just asked them to think about first, and then I will give them another paragraph in English to help them to really consolidate the feel that they hopefully have developed. Okay, I will pause here for a moment, and I will apologize for to the next speaker. I may take up about 5 minutes of your talk. I hope that's all right, and I hope Rainer can finish the session 5 minutes before the schedule. My apologies. Okay, right, and okay, go back to what I was saying. So just now I said that, well, in the classroom, you want to hear what students have to say, and then you comment on the feedback. So I would like actually now to take you back to my sentences here. Now, this is a paragraph I gave to the students. So can I ask my audience to really think how you can approach these sentences, trying to explain it to your students from what angle? So why you don't use any special structure for the first sentence? And after discussion, my students would come up with something like, well, because the first sentence is about actually a fact. It was just her birthday. There's no verb, no action involved. So there's no action involved, and we don't need anything special. And if you look at number 2 and number 3, the intention of number 2 is to say what we did, and the intention of number 2 is to say what we did, and the intention of number 3 is to after this context has been established, we go for more details to say exactly when this happened. So this is to add finer details to some already established information. So 是的 structure would be needed. The number 4 is about past experience. And number 5 is quite tricky. And normally it would take quite a bit of discussion to come to the conclusion. So when you say we liked the restaurant, to like something is not an action, it's a mental activity, it's static. When it comes to this kind of verbs, you would not go for any special structure. So you see, I have approached this from an angle where I don't use any jargons, where I don't use any difficult terminologies, but my students can really feel the sense. So although they may not be able to, after that discussion, use all the structures correctly, but at least in their head, they know some general rule that they can follow when they approach these structures. At least they know that they need to make a choice when it comes to the fact that they are talking about the past. So back to here, and after the discussion, I will give the students another paragraph in English, and I will just ask them to say which structure they will go for, whether they need any structure or not. So what I do is, it was cold last May, and students will shout, nothing special. I ran the Edinburgh Marathon. Le. Why? Because you did. Okay. I ran with my friend. 是的. Why? Because we know you did, and now you want to tell me who. Good. They had run marathons before, but I had not. 过 because experience. I loved the experience. Nothing. Why? You love it. It's in your head. Can't do anything about anything. It's in your head, so nothing special. You see, that goal has achieved. Of course, you're not going to ask your students to translate this paragraph at this stage, but at least this paragraph will help them to feel when exactly they will go for which structure, or whether they need any special structure or not. Okay, and then you will tackle the structures one by one, and now you can come back to your topic-based syllabus and not worry about whether students would find it difficult deciding between the structures. And of course, you are going to have frequent exercises in various forms to help them consolidate. But remember, when you give them any task, context is a must when it comes to an event in the past, because for exactly the same thing, when our intention is different, we may go for 了 or 是的. So the context is a must. You have to build a context when you give tasks. Avoid mechanical exercises. So after classes, you need to ask your students to do exercises and to explore. And your exercises must be fun in form, they must be meaningful in content, you must encourage them to exercise all 4 basic skills, because when it comes to grammar, it's quite often that teachers would only ask their students to do multiple choice or writing exercises, but remember that you can also ask them to do speaking and listening, and feedback, prompt feedback. Okay, and practice and exploration. This is what I just said, and remember, they are very important for your students if they want to engage them. And I will give you some examples of my tasks, and I will go over these 2 slides very quickly. I will give them, so this is, I must say, this is after I have taught in detail the structures that they need to know, especially after I have taught them 了. So I gave them this paragraph, and I would like you to think, what skills can this task exercise, and how to enhance communication and autonomous learning through this task. So a task is a task. How to use it is up to the teachers. And I'll give you another example. So this time, it's a paragraph in English. And again, you can ask yourselves these two questions. So no matter what tasks you give students, you won't leave it to chances. You would really want to ask yourself, what these are there for? What this can achieve. Okay, right. I will wrap up. I have just promoted a communicative approach to explicit grammar teaching. And I touched upon what to do before, during, and after flipped grammar class. And I talked about how to engage, motivate, and support students. And I hope I will have future opportunities with you to talk into more details to see what we should do for our students. And I would like to remind everyone that we are going to have a fourth session on the 25th of June. If you have any questions, please ask. You can ask now, you can type in, and our organizer will see the questions and collect them so that all the speakers will see the questions. Or you can scan this code. We have created a question pool. You can put your questions there. Okay, so I will thank you very much for listening. And now I'm going to hand the floor to our next speaker, Xuan 老师, based at SOAS.
Thank you very much, Juju, for your excellent presentation. I would like to learn more, just to wish we have more time. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Greeting from London. Sorry apologize for the delay. So I assume everyone can see my screen now. So first of all, I would like you to log in this Pear Deck platform. Just type joinpd.com, and the code to join is JCXPP. Yes. Once you start to log in, I at least one student log in. That's why I can start my lesson. Okay, so my name's Lik Soon. Okay, I work for East Asia Department at SOAS, University of London. My university is one university offering Chinese BA and MA and PhD degrees related to Chinese language and Chinese culture, literature, everything. Okay, the most famous person might be Johnston, Zhuang Shidun, who was the Puyi's teacher. And when he came back to the UK, and he works for our department, SOAS, and also set up his special collections of Chinese books and things. Now it's at SOAS Library. So I have a very good research library specialized in Chinese and China studies. Okay, we also have a London Confucius Institute, which I also act as a deputy director at London Confucius Institute. We were the first one set up, okay, in the UK. So today, I'm going to share my reflections and thoughts on three different things. The first thing is reading. Okay, so how do we teach reading in this new setting and new circumstance? And how do we teach writing? And in the writing, I put down two phrases. One is 书写. Okay, so basically, how do we write? And then, of course, a related question will be, do we still need to write? Can we still write handwritten, or we will typing instead of writing? Okay, and then more likely, well, 书写 will related to character learning as well. Okay, but also focus on the writing, which is what we really need to do, what we really need as a skill is write to communicate. And towards the end, I will just sharing some reflections about the e-world. So my learning curve during this difficult time. And I'm quite sure many of you sharing the same frustrations, overwhelming, and now probably feel more comfortable now to use hybrid or blended teaching nowadays. I joined a conference a few days ago, and when the host asked the audience to say, if there's a chance we go back to face-to-face teaching, do you prefer to go back completely back to the face-to-face teaching and drop all the online teaching. Very interestingly, majority people will say they want to keep at least a part of the online teaching. So that means this COVID-19 actually pushes us into a new world, whether we like it or not, but towards the end, we accepted it and we adapt ourselves into the new world. Okay, so basically, I will try to cover 3 parts in today's session. Okay. First of all, we talk about reading. When we talk about reading, we have basically lots of theories about reading. Okay, so but I put it down as 4 different main skills. It's not really skills, but because okay, so I put down 4 columns here. The first one I put down is skimming. Okay, skimming in Chinese is 浏览. So that means you read something. Imagine you have a newspaper in hand. Okay, you want to know what are the headlines. Okay, or you have an article you only in front of you. You only got 2 minutes. Have a quick glance, and then you will have a gist of what it's about. Okay, for example, oh, this is about whether school should be open again, or this is about the restrictions of traveling, okay, or this is about quarantine or whatever. So you get a basic, very kind of brief idea about what is going on in this article. So this is a skimming skill. Okay, another one is called the scanning skill. It's a 搜索. Okay, so that means you have a newspaper. You want to look at what is the weather like. Okay, what's the stock market, the particular share, what's the performance, should I buy or sell? Okay, I want to know whether the train timetable has been changed. Okay, or your train station, you're looking for your train on the information board. So that is called scanning. Okay, and also in Dr. Juju's presentation, when she demonstrates the how do you find out all the grammar points related to the past, you can scan the table of the content and find out the structures mentioned or related to the past tense. This is called scanning. And in our teaching, most of the time, particularly in classroom reading teaching, we really go for detailed study. So detailed study will not just to get the information, we also look at every detail, such as the vocabulary, okay, the word combination, okay, and the structures and the cohesion between the sentences between sentences, okay, and also the paragraph, how do they build up, and also they talk about how do you develop the entire essay, okay, and of course we practice the structures as well. So most of the time we probably pay attention to the detailed study. We spend lots of time to explore the material. Okay, this one we'll also call it intensive reading, right? Not really intensive reading, it's intensive study, the reading skills. And after all of that, the very important thing is we have a summary. So the summary is like 小结 and 总结. Okay, so summary and skimming, the first skill is skimming, right? So, and the summary is here. So they are different because skimming, you only need a gist. You only need a very brief idea about what is going on. And the summary, you have to select what the information are most important. So for example, if you read a paragraph and you set a task for the students to say, okay, now tell me what are the main key points, okay, main points of this essay or of this paragraph. This is a summary. They have to decide what are the side facts, what are the main facts, what are the keys, and they decided to trim off all the extra information and keep the core information. So this involved in more analytical skills and lots of things behind it. Okay, so we do not go for the details of all of the details. How do we read? Some articles listed probably 20 different levels of reading in the reading. Okay, so from decoding the words combination and towards like inferral. Okay, lots of things happening. Okay, so now I want you to do one thing is you should be able to, okay, in your pad deck, you should be able to move your dot, okay, on any of this, all of this, okay, to see which skill, okay, is most difficult in terms of teaching. Which skill you think is most difficult for us to teach? Of course, I'm talking about skimming, scanning, and summary. So if you can try to move your dot, drag your dot to any part of the picture of the slide, and I will be able to see the result of it. Okay, I'm going to see the response. Okay, very good. Okay. Oh dear. Okay, so from what I can see is the summary skills. Okay, it's difficult. Okay, good. That's good. So we will we'll talk about how to use this pad deck later. Okay, so very good. Thank you very much for share. I'm going to hide. Yeah, you still can play with it. In here, I use the Discover China Book 4. So this is towards the lower no, I think it's intermediate level. Okay, so book 3 is lower intermediate. It's really intermediate level, and this is unit 12. Unit 12 is the last unit of this book. So that means approaching the intermediate, end of the intermediate. Okay, so each Discovery China unit will have 4 skills arranged. So they always start from the speaking, listening, okay, and then followed by speaking and reading and writing and grammar and reflections. Okay, so it's always arranged like that. So if you, okay, so towards the end, you will be able to find the link if you send emails, and you will be able to get the free access to the textbook. Yeah, so that's what's end. Okay, so I'm using this textbook, page 160 to 161. This is a reading text. The title of this reading is 8月的重逢. Okay, so I'm showing the first paragraph here. And then after the reading, they have a reading comprehension questions. I also chopped the question 1, which related to this paragraph. Okay, so you can see the questions as well. Okay, so in here, I would like you to think about what kind of reading skills involved in this question. Okay, so the question is 王玉和朋友们下次聚会可能会在哪里? So you will be able to find the lines here is 可以在地球上的任何地方. Okay. So in here we can find this is a scanning, okay, skill. So we really scan the text and find most relevant one. And of course, this is not directly scanning. So it's not like a word spotting. Spotting, that means you just find exactly words. You mention about 地球 and then in the answer appeared 地球. Okay, so this is not directly related to that. That means this is involved in a little bit vocabulary conversion. Okay, so they use the 任何地方. And the students must have a knowledge of 任何 means any places, okay? And then 哪里都可能 indicate anywhere it's possible. So this involved in the vocabulary decoding, okay? Not just look at the words, but you have to know these words and A words and B words, they have some connections between them. Okay, so this is a scanning, okay, because you're looking for a specific information related to this reading, but it's not directly related to, I mean, it's involved in vocabulary conversion as well. Okay, I'm showing the next question. Okay, next question. It's another paragraph, okay, and in here is question 3. 朋友们给王玉的启发是什么? And then involved in A and B and C, 3 different options. Okay, so if I want to add in work, okay, so I will be able to. Okay, so I want you to do, okay, one thing. Okay, so can you do a quick response to say A and B and C? Okay, which one do you think is correct? Okay. Okay, I can see 13 colleagues already make that choice. Okay, very good. We just play with it, right? Okay, good. So in here, okay, so the 保持乐观开放的态度，保持乐观开放的态度. Again, we can find this is a scanning question. Okay, so you actually it's much easier than previous one, but the difficulty level is increased by the question, not by the answer. The question is, 朋友们给王玉的启发是什么？ Okay, 启发是什么? So if the student doesn't understand the meaning of 启发 and cannot link this one to 他们最值得我学习的地方, and then the students will be difficult to get the right answer. So you can find, I just demonstrate 2 reading questions. They both involved in the scanning skills, but the teacher can increase the difficulty level by replace the words or interpreting the words. Okay, so you still test the students much more complicated skills rather than just the spot, the right answer skill. Okay, good. Move on. Next one. Okay, so in here we have another question which is related to the reading comprehension text. Okay, so in here is to check the difficulties that Wang Yu faces in the US. So we have 1 to 7. So this is a multiple correct choices. So that means the students have to look at the entire passage. They involved in 6 paragraphs and decided whether the 7 descriptors here are fitting the accurate related to the text itself. So this one involved in what kind of skill? Okay, so I want you to do one more interactive action with me. Okay, so you can write in Chinese or you can write in English. Okay, so you can write on your small board your answers. Okay, very good. So I have one colleague said skimming, okay, and a detailed reading. Very good. Okay. Yes, detailed reading. Yes, very good. Excellent, very good. Involved in scanning skills. Yeah, what we're testing is detailed reading. You are right. Okay, so we can continue. So you can find this interactive platform is really good. Okay, we'll talk about the platform later, but I'm going to hide. You are right. Very good. So this one involved in the full reread the entire text and check the fact. Okay. And decided whether they probably mentioned about 找工作, but not necessarily mention 毕业以后很难找工作. So that means they have to be not only just a mention item, but also a true and false item as well. So you can find this one is a detailed reading. Okay, detailed reading plus the scanning. Of course, scanning is always there. Very good. Okay, so this is I just used the textbook questions to show us what kind of reading comprehension questions we can set. Okay, so this is also from the Discover China Book 4, Unit 12, but this one is towards the end of that unit, which is called Communication Activities. Okay, you can find, you probably, the images are too small, but I can tell you it's a small article about Terry Fox, okay, 泰瑞福克斯, and they have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, okay, so they have 9 paragraphs, and then one task they want every students to do is to put the sentences into the correct order. Okay, put the sentences into the correct order. So I want everyone to think about what kind of skills are really involved if we want the students to put the sentences into correct order. I just finished the exam with my second year students yesterday, and one of the students said the one type of exercise they scared most is this type. Okay, so the sentences we give students scattered sentences and they have to put it together, and he found this is extremely difficult. This is a very good student, but he said he just don't understand the logic behind it. Okay, so I want everyone think about what kind of skill, really reading skills, really involved in this kind of task. Okay, so I'm just to try to show you how to set up a quick work. Okay, I will do, let's do a writing. Quick interactive work. I think is type. Where's right? Okay, that's a funny one, but just the type. Okay, ignore the question, just the type. What kind of skills you think involved in this? Is just in class. I just have a new idea. I want to use this interactive board. Okay, so I can set a quick question. It's not a preset question. I'll be able to see. Okay, scanning, scanning, scanning. Oh, everything. Yes. Okay, good. Thank you. So I have to say this is not only just the scanning skills. It's actually involved in the logic. So how do we arrange the context? Is that chronological? That's according to the time, or they are based on the reason and output, or the argument and evidence. So what kind of, they have lots of substructures in any writing, right? So that means the students also need to be aware of how do they weave in the information and facts into a longer piece of reading or piece of writing. So we will focus this. We will back to this one later when we start talk about writing. But at the moment, we know the reading comprehension or rearrange the sentences actually involved in more than just reading itself. Obviously, all these questions like question A and 1 and 2, this is all, excuse me, all the skills we already discussed, the scanning and skimming. Okay, so it's more scanning skills. If you look at all the reading comprehension questions, normally they were involved in the scanning. Okay, if you want to ask questions about what is the best topic of this writing, what is the main idea of this writing, and what is the writer's opinion, author's opinion of this particular thing. So that is all skimming. Okay, so that is all skimming skills. Good. Now I'm talking about how do I really teach this one. Okay, so I use Google Forms a lot. Okay, recently I didn't know I know it, but I never use it in teaching. But I use it a lot since the lockdown. Okay, and the reason I use it, I'll go back to the Google Forms later, but I use it is because it is free. Okay, so I no need to pay for it. It belongs to the Google family, which is reliable, and it's also reusable. Okay, very easy to change, and I can receive, most importantly, I can receive the responses straight away, and the students can know they receive the feedback when they do the work, and then I can receive the full report afterwards. So that means I don't really need to mark them if I set multiple choices and this kind of questions. Okay, so I'm sure most of the colleagues are familiar with the Google Forms. So I just to explore more, they have lots of functions. I'm still learning, okay, but in here I just demonstrate what is the setting look like. As Google Forms is one product of the Google family. So in here, I just decide the title is called Unit 12. I just put entire passage here, and then I decided to set up the questions. Okay, so in here, I just copied exactly question to say 说话人和朋友们, because I use a paragraph by paragraph. I didn't mention the Wang Yu because I didn't show them the entire reading text. So the writer's name, the letter's writer name is Wang Yu, or blog writer's name is in the corner at the end. They don't understand. Okay, so I will just change to say 说话人 supposed to be 我和朋友们下次聚会可能会在哪里. And then I just click the bar of the multiple choice. You have lots of options. If you click this one, I use multiple choice. Okay, multiple choice, that means you only got one correct answer and with as many as distractors as you wish. And you click that one, and as a teacher said, I can decide the weighting. Okay, answer key is 10 points. Okay, and then I can select the correct answer. For example, I choose 美国 as a correct answer. I can set and also can require this one to be required. Required, that means students have to answer this question, and then they can move to the next question. Okay, so you can do all the settings as you like. Continue. Okay, so I set another type of question. Okay, so this one I said actually this is students' response. Okay, students, after I finish everything, okay, after I finish it, I share this one with my students. You can stop sharing at any time as you like. And once the students give the answer, they're showing the responses here. Okay, so in here, the students choose the answer. They will, for example, they choose the 中国. Okay, and then I will say correct answer is 美国. I didn't really write. Okay, supposed to be this one. Okay, so correct answer is 美国. Okay, the students will know they get it wrong and no marks received. Okay. And then in here, I use another type of question. You can see the box has been changed. This is called a multi-box. That means they probably got 2 or 3 correct answers. Okay, so in here, you also can set correct answers is more than 1. It's just the different settings and things. Okay, so in here, when the students finished, I will be able to see, okay, responses 3. So that means 3 students have submitted their answers. If I click this one, I can see individual students' answer. This is the first student's answer. If you set up to ask them to enter their name and the student's ID, you basically will be able to receive individual report of everything. Okay, good. So move on. This is very, very useful. I use it pretty much for all the teachings recently. Just to sum up, very quickly sum up. So teaching reading involves in lots of different skills. You have to set up the work based on what kind of skills you aim at. And then you will decide a platform to deliver the teaching. And the best way is something cheap or free, okay, in my way. Okay, so free and reliable, and also can be reused, and not time consuming but time saving. Okay, and always can be recycled. So this is all my selection criteria, and that's why Google Form works very well. Of course, the fonts, everything's not perfect, but it is very effective, very, very useful. Now we move to the next one I want to talk about very briefly. This is about writing. Okay, talk about the writing involved in learning characters, learning words, learning phrases, learning sentences, and then paragraphs and the entire text. Okay, so in the previous 2 week session, 2 weeks before, no, 1 month ago, I can't remember. Okay, the previous session delivered by Zhou Laoshi, she already gave you a great range of all the softwares you can use. Okay, so I just very, very quickly just to recap a little bit. Please write down the written Chinese is very useful website. If you just type any words you want to search and you choose dictionary on the right, and they will be able to basically showing the stroke. It's animation stroke combinations. Okay, you can copy and paste, and you can use it in the classroom that demonstrate the stroke orders. I try to put it there, but somehow it doesn't work on the PowerPoint. So, but you try it, just type written Chinese, very useful website. And another thing is when I teach Chinese characters, I always very early stage, so probably second week when the students knowing about 10 words, 20 words, okay, I will show them the structure. I use this one to indicate actually the Chinese characters, different parts, they have relationship and how they have a structure. Okay, so I find this one, they have different versions of this. Okay, so some of them use a 9宫格 and some of them use just like a jigsaw. But I found these block images are very, very useful. It's very pictorial, interactive, so that you can see the combinations of these characters. Okay, you can find lots of sources online. I think at the certain time, as Juju just mentioned, okay, so you're always involved in students thinking about how to find out the rules of learning characters rather than we are teaching them all the time. Okay, of course, another thing you can do is you can use softwares or PowerPoint, you can make this function. Okay, so you can make the radicals and parts, scatters, and then you'll be able to ask the students drag it to different places and then to form a character. So, but that is all radical learning. How to memorize it? Lots of us are using that. I just skip it. Okay, so this is another interesting website. If you want to, okay, particularly when I start to teach, I want to find images of oracles, okay, different scripts in old time. For example, I want to say what the che character look like in old oracle bones. Okay, so I will find image I like. They're very good pictures, very good images. You can just cut and paste, and it is free to use. Okay, move on. Talk about the words and structure and paragraph and essay. Okay, I just quickly show. Back to the reading text again. So when I teach this text, so I will ask students to use the vocabulary to basically to have a deep learning about the vocabulary. So I will say, 用上文中的词语解释. So they have done the 2 reading comprehension. Now I want to do a vocabulary learning. Okay, so 给我启发的地方. Okay, I want the students to find equivalent expressions from the text, which is 值得我学习的地方. Okay, and the second one I said 他们保持开放的态度. So I want the student to fully understand what's that really mean. Okay, so 保持开放的态度, they have to search. Okay, so and then they can write it down. 乐于接受新的事物. So because between the 开放的态度 and 乐于接受新的事物, they are really interpreting to each other. Okay, so this is a vocabulary learning and also help students. Of course, this is writing task, right? So ask them to written or type the writing. Okay, type the answers. So that means I'm doing a vocabulary learning. Okay, now I will ask students to do the next thing, to do the writing. Before the writing, first of all, I ask students to analyze a sentence. Oh, my highlight has gone. Okay, so to look at this long sentence. Okay, so for example, in this sentence, right, start from 在, okay, until 足迹, right? Okay, so I want to say, look at this long sentence, very long sentence structure, okay, and then to circle the important connection words, and then to mimic writing the sentence or do a translation, or use one structure, use another structure to rewrite sentences. Okay, so that is the way I ask them to do before the writing. So analyze, select words, to do a mimics writing, and then rewrite the sentence. So this is the writing task we can do. Now I analyze the entire paragraph. I will say at the beginning, okay, how do they build up the writing? Okay, so at the beginning, I talk about the things we need to learn from, okay, the friends, okay, of Wang Yu. So she found the students, she is learning from her friends. Okay, so that's a summative, okay, description, and then divide it, okay, separate in things, and then give more examples to explain. So after analyze the entire paragraph, okay, I know there's a kind of a general separate example, right? Okay, for example, this is an example, and then we'll say, okay, so you need to write a small paragraph. I give you a title to say in learning Chinese online. So at the beginning, you will give your comments to say learning Chinese online give me lots of pressure. Okay, and then you have to tell me what kind of pressure, pressure A and pressure B. And then you have to give me an example. So why that particular thing give you the pressure. Okay, so that is basically analyze the text, because bear in mind, not everyone naturally know how to write. Everyone have to learn how to write. Okay, even they are studying at university. Don't even mention about if you're teaching the students at the secondary school or even primary school. So they need more guidance on how to organize the writing rather than just give them the phrases. Okay, and move on. Okay, so this is what I'm using. Okay, I have another 5 minutes, right? Okay, good. So Google Doc is the thing I'm using, again, free, okay, very reliable. So this becomes my internet whiteboard. The good thing of it is it's synchronized. So that means I and my students can work together. And the second advantage is students are learn from each other. And third thing is I can get feedback straight away. Okay, so in here, it's my second year students when I'm teaching. Okay, so I'm using different textbook. Okay, so in here is a question. In your country, okay, so what is the people's concept of finding an ideal career? Okay, so I show the question and I am typing my answer and 4 of my students here are typing at the same time. So everything's synchronized. It probably got 1 second, half second delay, but I can see the typing. Okay, very good thing is I'm typing, so I provide a good sample, not necessarily good sample, but provide a sample. And everyone else is typing at the same time. You can see the S3 is reasonable weak student. Is short. Her sentence is shorter and simple. Okay, so S1 is a stronger one. Okay, so actually they learn from each other. So if S3, student 3, look at S1's writing, and she might decided to choose alter her writing and using a phrases the other students are using. So I provide using this platform, the students are really learning from each other and do not need to feel very embarrassing because you are forming the sentence, right? You're just in progress, so you're not completed yet. And it's not the work you need to submit, it's more formative. I keep a record, so I know everyone's performance. It's very, very good. And then another thing you can see all this the block square. Okay, so this is when the students finished, I give the comments. So students, or for example in here, as a student write down 现代实习越来越热门. So obviously 现代 is not good writing. So I told them 如今 and 现在 is better. So verbally I can explain what are the differences. Okay, good. And then the students make 通俗. It says wrong using, but it's probably using dictionary. Okay, so I say 常见, and then I can explain how to use a common. Okay, how to use 通俗很常见. So this is all my teaching. So you can find this very, very good. So to summarize, it's a synchronized, so everyone's working together and the students can learn from each other, not only just from me, and I can give a feedback straight away. Okay, so this is good. And you can find this another one. Okay, after we're learning a pattern, okay, from the text. So I just draft a translation to say, okay, living in today's era, okay, keeping awareness of risk is crucial. Okay, So S1, S2, S3, S4 is typing. You can find S3 is the strongest. Okay, so I give a comments, very good translation. Okay, and I teach the new words, 未雨绸缪. I give the pinyin. Okay, you can see S1 and S2 are actually, they changed the original sentence. I just learned this 未雨绸缪. Okay, so this is using Google Doc to help me with writing. Of course, it's not really writing, it's typing. Okay, I borrow the last 3 minutes, very quickly share my reflections of the e-world. I was in this phase when everything started. Okay, I was really frustrated and overwhelmed. And then into this phase, actually, got very frustrated because I was overwhelmed by so many softwares and so many things I need to learn. I really get lost. Okay, was disappeared. But I think I am reasonable okay now here with this smiling face. Okay, because I find out that actually with all the things available, there are 2 important key family. Okay, I don't have time to do interactions now, but I will just move on. The Google family is very good. They probably got thousands of products around, but two biggest giants are Google and Microsoft. Okay, so they have very similar products. For the Google, you got email, you got Google Drive, you got Google Forms, Google Doc, Google Forms, Google Excel. Okay, so this is the things and Google Teams as well. Okay, so meeting, conference, so lots of things. You look at what we're having is we got PowerPoint, that means Google Slide, what I am using now. Okay, OneNote, that is online sharing. Okay, OneDrive is like Google Drive, Word, Excel, sharing point, and this is conference, right? Outlook is referred to the Gmail. So you can find, okay, so do not try everything because we don't have that time. We have to go back to the core and have to go back to the teaching itself. Don't get lost with all these things. I've tried lots of things, but towards the end, I want to find something very powerful, well supported, free of usage, okay, free of use, okay, no need to pay, and got very strong. The big company, they always can purchase something good in. For example, the Pear Deck I'm using now is free to use using Google Slide, and also Microsoft also got Pear Deck version, both free to use as an add-on. Okay, so why not? So small things, three things to go. Okay, so Pear Deck, which we are using today, very, very powerful, free to use with the Google or Microsoft 365. You can ask a student to text. You can use a multiple choice. You can use the numbers. You can use a website and more functions, far more, lots of options. So today I just demonstrate a little bit basic ones. I myself is not very familiar with it. I have to admit, I'm still learning, but explore it. It's very useful if you are facing a big classroom. Not necessarily very useful for one-to-one teaching though. Okay. Another thing, I just hope I have more time. Okay, we can explore more about Pear Deck, but highly recommended, free to use. Next one is live worksheets. Okay, the good thing for this one, particularly for school teachers, not the universities, not necessary. Okay, you can find a very colorful, very children related. They have Chinese. Okay, they have Chinese, and the teacher can upload your work as well. Okay, and this is very interactive. The students can drag the colors everywhere. Okay, so you can print it out to use. You can send to students to use online. And most importantly, it is free. Okay, to try this one. And then the last one, if you really like games, okay, really like games, you can try Word War. Okay, 自强, very powerful, very good. The only thing is, they only allow you to choose 5 games. Okay, 5 games for free. So if you register with another account, you can have another 5 games to play with. I use this one a lot. It's called a random wheel. So once you create it, you can put your phrases and your words you want students to learn, and they can flip around. Okay, just to flip, and any words come out, you ask them to make up a sentence, or you can use it to do a free talk. For example, tell me about your hobbies, tell me about your pets, tell me about your daily routines. You put it there and you flip, and then students have to speak something about the topic showing in front of them. So that's create unpredicted surprise, and also to be very fair to the students. So this is another thing I recommend. Okay, so if you want to receive more resources for Discover China, okay, so this is really good. You can click and you can open all the files available, and you can use it for free for a certain time. Okay, so so basically you'll be able to get all the informations about the textbook and of Discover China from the this email. So if you just send email, you should be able to receive the access code for that. Okay, go back to announce the next session. So our next session will be on the 25th of June in 2 weeks of time, 10 to 11. So 4 colleagues will come back to answer your questions. It's important to send us your question, and also if you haven't done so, just scan this code. You'll be able to submit the questions to our question pool. Okay, so thank you very much for joining today's session. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lick, and to Zuzu as well for a wonderful session. I think a lot of our attendees really benefited a lot from the session. So thank you so much, and thank you also for bearing with us for some of the technical issues we sometimes have. If you do have any questions, you will receive an automatic follow-up email. Feel free to ask any questions. The PowerPoint will be sent out in due course, and the webinar link hopefully will be accessible either by tomorrow or by next week. So do look on our Macmillan Education International Curriculum YouTube page for that as well. So in the meantime, just to say once again, thank you to Juju and to Lick as well for a great session. And hopefully we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time. So take care for now. And as always, stay safe and stay positive during this time as well. Take care, everyone, and hopefully speak to you soon. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.